things are changing, right? Always changing. Okay, Sarah and I can attest to that. Hopefully that doesn't make you uncomfortable. Because if change makes you uncomfortable, you're going to be uncomfortable all the time. Because there is no way around change. It happens. Even if we stand steadfast against change, refusing to allow anything to change, the stubborn attitude that we acquire to make that stand in and of itself is a change. Change is inevitable. That is something that I am learning as well as Sarah, and will continue to learn in some great detail and with some force as Mirembe grows with every day. One thing that I foresee changing is we will eventually need to do a little bit of child-proofing. Once she is mobile, the terror threat for the house is elevated. Or if we go with the color system, right? What is it? Orange, red, whatever that might be. We'll change the color, right? We'll put a little warning sign in the front of the house. We'll change the color as she becomes a greater terror to the house and those around her. You can ask my mom and my sister Liz, who just happened to walk out, about that. I understand that she was quite the climber, so she was quite a terror at times. It's probably safer that she walked out before I said that. So no. But I have already taken note of a couple things in our house that will need to change. First and foremost, if you've ever been in our house, you will notice that there is a great big turtle. And he is not a very nice turtle. That we are going to need to make that turtle tank higher off the ground. That's right off the top, I can say that. That is going to need to change. So why do we need to worry about childproofing? Why do we need to worry about childproofing? Well, many times it's because we want to prevent them from getting injured, right? But I think that oftentimes, maybe sometimes most times, it is not about protecting them so much as it is protecting us and things from them, right? It's about keeping them from causing destruction. Children tend to lack a basic understanding or respect of breakable and fragile items. Leave a child unguarded for long and you will be sure to find parts and pieces of something where they don't belong. Good luck figuring out what those somethings are until you try to turn it on and it doesn't work anymore. You might find one day that your telephone is in the fishbowl. If you can go ahead and put that up for me. Somehow that ended up where it didn't belong. Now that moment can range from, devastation, if you happen to have an iPhone, or just a mild frustration if you have a free phone that came with the plan, right? Depends how much money it costs. Maybe your child is in that I'm going to stick everything in their mouth stage.
Oh no.
And you turn your back for just a second to see that. Your $600 iPad has now doubled as a teething ring. When you retrieve it, you probably will find that it was better to leave it out in the rainstorm than to let the toddler drool all over it. As adults, we learn that certain things have certain functions, and they should not be used for anything but, right? Cell phones don't make good fish tank ornaments. iPads don't make good teething rings. Good china is for company only. Cell phones are for talking, computers are for typing, and irons are for ironing, right? We learn a certain respect for place and position. Certain things belong certain places, and they shouldn't be used for certain things. How do you feel about maybe a book being used to level a table? Let's say we took this book and one of the chairs were wobbling, so I stuck it under the leg of the chair. How would you feel about that? That doesn't belong there, does it? Imagine that's how we'd probably feel. That shouldn't be used for that. That is more important than that. Or maybe we understand that your mother's wedding ring does not belong as an ornament for your fish tank. Or how about if you came home and you found your significant other using an iron and a hairdryer for this? Something doesn't quite seem right there. It works. I mean, it's doing the job. But at the same time, we're going, don't you ever do that when you get home. You're going, Walt, don't you try that. Right? I know it looks interesting, but if you want to do that, you do that at your hunting lodge, right? We're aghast when we see something like this happen. We do. This isn't what belongs. That's not where it belongs. This is not acceptable. In fact, maybe, especially if it were something like this, used to keep the chair from rocking, we might become a little offended, right? Have you ever been offended because someone else did not treat something valuable that they had with the respect and care that you thought that they should? I'm sure we all have to some degree or another. You've got the money for that, and that's what you're going to do with it? You can't treat a book that way. You are so careless with your possessions. Well, we tend to apply these same concepts of respect and function to people as well. When they go to the restaurant, who's going to clean the table? Well, it certainly isn't going to be the chef, is it? You don't go to school and find the teacher cleaning the bathrooms, do you? Under no circumstances should a CEO be expected to take their own trash out. And especially, they shouldn't be expected to take their neighbor's trash out too. We see these same kinds of expectations as we read the Gospels. Certain people are supposed to do certain things. And it's not just a matter of, we're going, whoa, what are they doing there? Giggling a little when we see somebody doing something they're not supposed to. But we see people getting offended. Why are you doing that? You're not supposed to do that. What kind of assumptions do you think that the people of Israel made about Jesus as he came and taught them? When they looked at him and saw what he did, what do you think they expected his function was supposed to be? And how do you think they reacted when he acted outside of that function? The Gospels are full of references as Jesus being king. How is a king supposed to act? John the Baptist says, prepare the way of the Lord, make his paths straight. And he says, he who is coming after me is mightier than I, whose sandal I am not worthy to carry. Okay? Hearing about a person like that, how are they supposed to act? What is he supposed to be doing? Or more importantly, what is he not supposed to be doing? Who is he supposed to be spending time with? And who is he supposed to be avoiding? How should people be treating him? Well, Jesus constantly disappointed on this front. In fact, Jesus' choices to live in a manner below what he deserved made others around him quite angry and uncomfortable. Rabbis, don't do that. It didn't matter if it affected them personally. It doesn't matter if it does anything to my life if you act that way. They would get offended. Rabbis aren't supposed to do that. Certain people were angry with Jesus just because Jesus acted beneath himself. Even the disciples, they chafed beneath Jesus' obvious lack of protocol. Children came running up to Jesus, and what do? They stopped him. This is no place for children. Children don't come up to the rabbi. Children don't touch him. Get back in the back where you belong. This is no place for children. The teacher is reserved for people of greater importance. Jesus speaks alone to a woman at a well, a Samaritan woman. And when the disciples come, their first response is to wonder, why is he talking to her? Why is he acting beneath himself? The first time Jesus tells the disciples about the Father's plan, that he would be beaten, executed, and rise again, Peter was so offended by the indignity of it all Then he pulls Jesus aside and he rebukes him. Then there was the greatest indignity of all. Turn with me over to John chapter 13. John chapter 13. Starting in verse 3. Let's read a few verses there. I'll be up on the board behind me as well. John 13, 3 through 5. Jesus, knowing that the Father had given all things into his hands, and that he had come from God, was going back to God, rose from the supper. He laid aside his outer garments, and taking a towel, tied it around his waist. Then he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, and to wipe them with the towel that was wrapped around him. This is terrible. What is he doing? You imagine, they're not just uncomfortable, they're probably a little offended by this idea that the master is washing their feet. How could Jesus allow something like this to happen? What is going through his head? How could the disciples let this happen? Peter said something, but note that he washed the other disciples first before he got to Peter. Now Peter, again, he's obligated here. He has to rebuke Jesus and he has to refuse. In fact, if we were to look at it, it looks like he might actually be rebuking the disciples a little too, right? We cannot let the Son of God act in such a manner. How could they have let him do something like that? A disciple must guard the dignity of his master. Now, I know the foot washing story oftentimes gets a lot of attention, so I don't need to tell you how dirty their feet were. And I don't need to tell you that this was obviously beneath the rabbi, right? This was ridiculous. You don't make the lowliest of disciples do something like this. Okay? Even the disciples would not do this. They would probably have refused. This was beneath the task of a disciple, let alone the task of a master. Even the master of the house would not do this if at all possible. He had a servant for that. Why would Jesus continually do things like this that were beneath him? Why did Jesus over and over again offend people by doing things which were beneath him, shameful for him to do, that destroyed his dignity and integrity in the eyes of the people around him, that made him not just physically but ceremonially unclean in the temple? If he is king, why does he start acting like one? Well, either he's not the king we thought him to be, or our expectation of what it means to be king is way off. It's no wonder Jesus' disciples were so confused. Imagine, if they had this picture of what it meant for the Messiah to come in Christ, and he was going to be king, and they knew what kings did, and then Jesus acts like this, no wonder they were confused. Right? It'd be like Jacob walking in and changing a diaper. I don't expect Jacob to change a diaper, right? I expect Jacob to run the other way when the diaper comes. I'm just teasing. Isn't it surprising that when Jesus asked them who they thought he was, that Peter was the only one who could answer? I don't think it's that surprising at all. If they're this confused and he's not acting like the Christ, he's not acting like a king, how can you say, well, Jesus, you're the Christ, when you certainly aren't acting like it? Right? It was hard to know who he was when he wasn't acting the way he was supposed to be. So why? Why did Jesus act like this in such an unkingly manner? Well, turn a little back to Matthew chapter 20. Matthew chapter 20, starting in verse 25. Matthew 20, 25. But Jesus called them to him, and he said, "You know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and and their great ones exercise authority over them. It shall not be so among you. But whoever would be great among you must be your servant. And whoever would be first among you must be your slave. Even as the Son of Man came not to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. The Son of Man came not to be served. But isn't that what kings do? They're served. Well, yes, it is what kings do. But the better question is that what kings are supposed to do? Maybe it's not Jesus who's got it wrong. Maybe it's our perception of what a king is supposed to be that is wrong. One who thinks himself king is served, but the one who is truly king serves. We hear the difference there. The one who thinks themselves to be a king is served, but the one who truly is king serves. Everything about what Jesus did, who he was, and how he lived, was for the purpose of serving others. This may be the most prevalent theme throughout the entire Gospels. Jesus as servant. A few weeks back we talked about how the kingdom of God was oftentimes referred to as the great reversal. If the kingdom is the great reversal, then wouldn't the king be the great reversal as well? In fact, the driving force behind this reversal is the king himself. Everything is turned upside down. Think about Jesus' story. We expect a royal king, and we get a baby in an animal's feeding trough. We expect a conquering warrior, and we get a gentle lamb. We expect a gallant steed, and we get a donkey. We expect a revolution, and we get a sacrificial death. We expect this to be the end, but in 3 days we find a resurrection. Everything we expect is turned completely upside down. Why? Why does Jesus throw everything upside down? Why does he become a servant? Why does he give his life for those who are not worthy of it? Was there some ulterior motive? Was he trying to gain something? What did Jesus get out of all this? Well, the reason Jesus did all of this was for no other reason than for our own good. Why did he come? To save. Why did he heal? To make their lives better. Why did he wash their feet? Because they were dirty. Why did Jesus serve? Could it be simply because he wanted to bring us joy? In John 15:11, Jesus says, "These things I have spoken to you, that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete." Read again. "These things I have spoken to you." Or we can say, "I have spoken these things to you so that," because my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. Jesus did all that he did because of love, concern, and compassion. He served because he cared. We've been talking a lot lately about discipleship, specifically about making disciples. This is what Jesus came to do, and this is what he commanded his disciples to do. So what does serving have to do with discipleship? Well, as we see from Jesus, absolutely everything. If we wish to make disciples, to share the gospel, then we must throw away all ulterior motives and let every step be guided by love and service. Even we're not loving them so that they'll come to church. We're loving them because we care about them. Do we encourage them to come to church? Yes. But we're not doing something for some other reason. The only reason we do anything is because we love, care, and have compassion. Why did Jesus feed the 5,000? Was it because He thought, oh, this is a perfect teaching opportunity. If I feed all these people, they're going to think there's free food all over the place and they're going to follow me. No. It says he had compassion on them. Nothing more. It doesn't say he did it for any other reason other than he had compassion on them. Notice how many times in Jesus' ministry he began his encounters with healing and serving and then moved into teaching. It's not that Jesus was manipulating them by getting them to church with a donut, but rather Jesus is filled with such compassion and concern that he simply cannot do anything except to serve. Any ulterior motive, any other motivation other than love and such service ceases to begin to be service. If we are serving for the purpose of getting something, then it's not service at all. Even if it's nothing more than simply serving so that we might get a thank you. Serving for the purpose of getting something begins to emerge as nothing more than selfish fulfillment of pride or some other desire. The kind of service that Jesus gave to us was not free, as we see with so many places today. And you know what I'm talking about. When you go to the bank and you get a free thermos, it's not free. You've got to fill out and open an account, right? Or we got just the other day a free $10 gift card to Ruby Tuesdays. But you have to order 2 entrees from Ruby Tuesday before you can use the $10 gift card. And mind you, each entree almost costs $20. So, was I really getting something for free? No. That's not the way that Jesus operates. And that's not the way that we're supposed to operate either. It's not serving, it's not free if you have to do something to get it. Or if you have to do something to continue to receive it. That isn't free, that's a sale. Jesus didn't come to sell us anything though, did he? But he came to give freely. He has sent us all so that we might give freely. Can we give without strings attached? Ask yourself, are you capable of giving without any strings attached whatsoever? Will you be offended if you give someone $20 and they go to the arcade with it? Would that offend you? Because you have to ask, are there strings attached then? Giving without strings attached means it's yours, do with it as you please. If there are any exceptions attached to the gift, then it is not free, but it's like rather a sale. Even if the exception is nothing more than a thank you. If I expect something from you in return, it's not free. What God has called us to do is rather much more like what Paul describes in Romans. He calls us to outdo one another in showing honor. If you were to look through the Old Testament prophecies regarding the coming Messiah, don't you think that the picture of Jesus washing his disciples' feet might be the most unexpected, irreverent thing you could possibly imagine? Man, if you read through the Old Testament about the prophecies of the coming Messiah, don't you think that Jesus washing his disciples' feet would be the most unexpected, irreverent thing you could possibly ever do? Yet this is what he did. The world chased after him, and they found their Heavenly Father, who had been pursuing them for so long. What does it mean for us to become a servant then? Take a moment and picture some of the things that you think are beneath your position. Whether at home or at work. I don't need to do the dishes, that's their job. I don't need to cook, it's their job. I don't need to take out the trash, we have somebody else to do that. I don't need to clean up my mess, we've got janitors for that. I don't need to clean the bathroom. Maybe you think you don't have Maybe you think you shouldn't have to take out your own office trash. Maybe you think it's your spouse's job to pick up after themselves. It's not my job to pick up after them after all. Maybe stepping into a free clinic, a Salvation Army, or a homeless shelter. Maybe you feel one of those is beneath you. When it comes to the Great Commission, to sharing the gospel and making disciples, service is where it must start and end. So whatever thing we think about, we go, well, I don't have to do that. I shouldn't be expected to do something like that. Okay? If Jesus is calling us to serve, that's probably the place we should get started at. Okay? So, imagine arguments and debates you've had, okay? And I shouldn't have to do that. I shouldn't have to pick up after you. I shouldn't have to take out this trash. I shouldn't have to... Well, that's probably the place we should get started. Find the task and service that you think is beneath you and go and do it. Because there's a pretty good chance that's where Jesus wants you to start. God is working on lives every moment of every day. Some days our job is to do nothing more than to cultivate the soil. But we must remember, we will never see even an ounce of the harvest if we haven't been meticulously preparing the soil for months and years and decades before it even gets there. If we haven't been doing the little things, taking out the trash that's not my job to take out, cleaning up the peanut shells on the floor that I shouldn't have to clean up, if we haven't been preparing the soil for years and years and years, then how can we ever expect to see the harvest? Maybe we've been the ones using our possessions and gifts wrong all along. Maybe an iron was never meant for clothing. Maybe it was always meant for pizza. Probably not, but I do know this one thing for sure. A king was never meant to be served, but a king was always meant to serve. And we as well are what? Disciples. And if the king serves, then surely the disciples were meant to serve. We as well are meant to serve, to bring joy, and to change lives. We see one